Hello lovely people, how are we all today? I hope you guys are having a great day. Welcome or welcome back to Trapped by Love. My name is Emma Carrington, and if you are interested in true crime and justice, you are in the right place. By way of a disclaimer, we discuss true crime cases involving domestic abuse and domestic homicide on this channel. So if that's not the kind of content you were looking for, I completely understand. Thanks for stopping by. If you do stick around, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button. It helps to push these videos out to more people, and by doing so, together we can spread awareness of the warning signs of domestic abuse that people may otherwise overlook. So thank you for your help and support, and let's go ahead and get into today's case. Today we're going to be discussing the case of Rana Faruqi. Rana Faruqi was born on the 12th of September 1967 in Eton in Buckinghamshire. She was the middle child. She had an older brother Simon and a younger sister Gemma. She grew up in Farnham Common, which is a small village in Buckinghamshire. Rana's younger sister Gemma describes her as a daddy's girl. By all accounts, she was happy and independent, strong-willed, and someone who challenged herself to do her best in everything she did. Her family say she had a wonderful sense of humour and she was always making them laugh. Her mum describes her as brave. She says she wished she could be like Rana. Rana's main passion in life was horse riding. This is a hobby and skill that she had developed early on. Nearly as soon as she could walk, she was riding a horse. She had a horse named Toby, and she had jokingly told friends that Toby was the only man that she needed in her life. Rana worked for Hyundai. She was a business analyst in the IT department based in the town of High Wycombe. However, whenever she was not working, she could be found at the Jennings Farm stables in Burnham, riding Toby and unwinding from the stresses of her job. Rana also rode Toby competitively in equestrian meetings at the Windsor Park Equestrian Club. She took these competitions seriously, and she was very good at what she did. She had numerous photos and trophies from all her competitions around her small cottage home. In her 30s, Rana was content in her life. She had a loving family, a hobby she was passionate about, and work she enjoyed. However, in late 2001, Rana's dad was diagnosed with cancer, and he lost his battle in April the following year. Rana was devastated by the loss of her dad. It hit her terribly hard. The fact that she was still grieving her loss and trying to get her life back to normal meant she was really not looking for a relationship. However, that's generally when they come knocking, isn't it? Especially if you're emotionally vulnerable. It was late in 2002 that Rana met Stephen Griffiths at work. He was consulting on some improvements to the IT department, and after the session he made his way over to Rana to introduce himself. He also asked her out. She politely declined. However, they did exchange phone numbers and wound up in contact quite regularly over the next few weeks. Even though Stephen came across as charming and charismatic, and he asked Rana out repeatedly, she continued to politely decline. She had told her family that she just didn't find him attractive. When Stephen called Rana for comfort when his mother passed away, Rana, having so recently gone through the grief of losing a parent, was there as a shoulder to cry on. Stephen asked Rana to attend the funeral with him, and it wasn't long after, having their grief as common ground, the pair began a relationship. I'm going to interject here and say, please trust your gut. If you've been saying no to someone's advances for an extended period of time and they persist, one, they're not respecting you and what you're saying when you are saying no. This will not change if you get into a relationship with them. And most importantly, two, you are going against your own early warning system. That gut feeling is there for a reason. And the more you go against it, the less sensitive you will be to it, until you feel like you can't trust yourself or your judgment at all. And that's a really scary way to live, trust me. In any case, Rana's defenses were down and she began a relationship with Stephen. Of course, this relationship, like the majority of others that we cover on this channel, progressed quickly. Within weeks, Stephen had moved into Rana's little cottage after telling her that his lease was up on his flat and he needed somewhere to stay. Rana had agreed to this as a temporary arrangement. She had told him he could stay for 3 weeks. But when a kind heart gives an inch, some people will take a mile. Stephen quickly took over Rana's small home with all of his stuff, and if ever she would push back on the amount of belongings that he was moving in, he would get angry and tell her, "We're a couple now. This will hopefully soon be our place." No. Are we seeing a pattern to him not respecting what she says or her boundaries? Rana's family saw signs of his controlling behaviour early on. They noticed that she was changing and they could see the psychological effect he was having on her. Rana was spending more and more time at her mum Carol's because she was trying to avoid Stephen. On Christmas Day 2002, the couple spent the day with Rana's family. Stephen came decked out head to toe in designer wear and laden down with gifts for Rana. Her family sat awkwardly as Rana opened expensive gift after expensive gift. Now you might be thinking, what's wrong with that? It's Christmas. He's being nice. But remember, they've only been together a few months at this point. This is love bombing. Love bombing is an out of balance amount of affection or gift giving in relation to the amount of time you've been in a relationship. The I love yous in the first few weeks, or let's go on holiday days after meeting, or this excessive and expensive gifts. It's a manipulation tactic, and I have a full episode dedicated to love bombing on my second channel if you want homework. This raised even more red flags for her family. They were seeing the changes in Rana and realised that Stephen was emotionally and psychologically abusing her at home. The previously bright and happy Rana, who had such a love for life, was fading as they watched. Rana confided in her mum, telling her that arguments had been getting worse at home lately and that Stephen had been losing his temper over the smallest of things. She told her mum that she really didn't want to go home, admitting to her mum that he was scaring her. She felt like he wanted to control every aspect of her life. Rana was now walking on eggshells in her own home, afraid to set Stephen off. She told her mum that he had yelled at her, saying, "I don't know why anyone would ever love you, Rana. You are so difficult to live with." Carol told Rana that she had to get out of this relationship. Gemma said her sister had always been such an independent woman, and by March 14th, she said Rana had had enough of Stephen and the relationship. So she told him it was over and asked him to move out. Stephen didn't take this well. He refused to leave and Rana had to call the police. When the police arrived, Stephen handed over the keys and left, but he left all of his belongings behind. Rana had all of Stephen's things moved to Carol's garage so that Rana didn't have to have contact with him when he came to collect them. He did turn up at Rana's mum's house, but not really to pick up his stuff. He came to her home with his laptop to show her a PowerPoint presentation on why Rana should take him back. Rana's mum Carol was stunned. She recalls the title of the presentation being How to Get Rana Back. And through her disbelief, she tried to explain to him that the relationship was over and that he should just move on. But that was not on Stephen's to-do list. When Carol tried to reason with him, he lost it, yelling, "How could she do this to me?" A fearful Carol tried to calm Stephen down. He finally left her home 4.5 hours after he had arrived. He simply refused to accept that the relationship was over, and instead he began stalking Rana. He began to turn up outside her house in the middle of the night. Her neighbours saw him standing in the street at 3 a.m. They told Rana they'd seen him taking photos of her house. He also started going through her garbage bins. But this isn't all. Stephen would call her repeatedly, yelling abuse at her 1 minute and calling back, apologising and wanting another chance the next. If she was out with friends at the pub, he would show up. He didn't approach her. He just loitered and made sure she knew he was there. Gemma said, we didn't really take it that seriously at the time. He was just very irritating. She was angry. She just wanted him out of her life. She wanted to get on with it. But it was serious and would only get more so as the weeks and months went by. Rana took part in a dressage competition on her horse at the Windsor Horse Show, and Stephen attended to watch her. But he didn't just sit in the stands and watch. No, he parked his car right beside hers so she knew he was there, and then scaled a tree to watch with binoculars and take photos. When he was questioned by security, he said he was with the press, and this had them fooled for a while, but eventually they did turf him out. Rana went to police, and as former Detective Superintendent David Swindle, who discusses the case on Britain's Darkest Taboos, says, basically, on its own, in isolation, appearing at her house, standing outside in the street, nothing wrong. Appearing at a pub, nothing wrong. Appearing at a horse meeting, nothing wrong. But collectively, it's a circumstantial chain of events, and what you have is progressive behaviour here. Rana spoke with the police about these incidents, and in June of 2003, Stephen was spoken to twice by the police and told to leave Rana alone. The police advised Rana to keep an incident diary, making note of any time she or her family were contacted by Stephen. After she reported this to the police, Stephen was given an order banning him from contacting Rana. The warnings and the order given to Stephen didn't deter him though. His behaviour became more threatening and intimidating. Then, a month later, she discovered her car brake lines had been severed while she'd been away at a horse show. She believed that Stephen was behind this also, as her neighbours had seen him around her car while she was away. Rana called and reported this to the police, but they didn't have any physical evidence to prove it was Stephen who caused the damage to Rana's car, so they said there was little they could do. Rana physically went to the Slough police station 3 days after the incident because the police had broken 2 prior appointments to meet with her, and she was fed up. So she took the brake pipes the mechanic had taken from her car and she dumped them on the reception desk. The police seemed really not to be taking the potentially deadly damage done to her car seriously. Considering the history of harassment and their need to speak to Stephen previously on multiple occasions, you would think that they would be all over this. But no, not until she physically flung the evidence at them. Well, even then, they only took a statement from Rana. They didn't do any follow-up investigation. They didn't speak to the neighbours or try to find Stephen. The report just got shuffled around the station from officer to officer for 10 days until it was too late. On Saturday, the 2nd of August 2003, Rana spent the day, as she did most weekends, with Toby, her beloved horse, out on the Jennings farm in Burnham. At 8:30 in the evening, it was still warm and light out. Rana led Toby in from the field to settle him down for the night. But as she walked him back to the stables, Stephen appeared, walking towards her holding a hunting knife. What she didn't know was he also had with him 3 more knives, a truncheon, and binoculars. Rana pulled out her phone and immediately called 999. As the call connected, the operator heard Rana say, "You're not allowed to come anywhere near me. Steve, leave me alone." The operator could hear the struggle. They traced the call and dispatched emergency services to the location. Stephen Griffiths had attacked Rana with an 8-inch serrated hunting knife. He stabbed her more than 15 times. One of those knife wounds was through her heart. So even though the police and paramedics rushed to the farm, Rana was found deceased at the scene. And of course, Stephen had fled. When police arrived to deliver the news to Rana's mother, she broke down. But she also very determinedly told them it had to have been Stephen Griffiths who'd committed this violent act. The post-mortem examination showed that Rana's cause of death was the stab wound to her chest that had penetrated her heart. As people gathered around Rana's family and shared their love and sorrow, Stephen was on the run. The police appealed for any information that could lead to his apprehension. They named him as armed and dangerous and told the public not to approach him, but to notify police if he was sighted. All ports were on alert, as was Interpol, in the event that he attempted to flee the country. Then, on the 7th of August 2003, Stephen Griffiths was found in a campground in Watlington, near Oxfordshire. He had called and requested police and paramedics. He had attempted to take his own life. He was found with deep lacerations to both wrists. He was taken to hospital and tended to. He was also charged with Rana's murder. The police processed Stephen's car and found all the items he had taken with him the day that he had killed Rana. He also had rat poison, caustic soda, bow saws, a crowbar, a mallet, a catapult along with syringes, rope, gloves, and a number of other miscellaneous items that left the police with no doubt that he planned to kill Rana one way or another. In his car, he also had £1,500 in cash and some light reading material, namely a book titled Stalker and one called Unnatural Death. Stephen Griffiths faced Reading Magistrates Court on the 16th of August, where he was officially charged. He was remanded to custody to appear in Reading Crown Court on August the 21st, and at this time he entered a plea of not guilty. The trial was set for December 2004. So on the 10th of December 2004, the trial was set to begin. In the time between the initial plea hearing and the beginning of the trial, Stephen had changed his plea to guilty. Stephen's defence was that he had not intended to kill Rana. He wanted to kill her horse Toby as psychological punishment for the enormous stress he was in. The prosecution pointed out that it wasn't difficult to hear the true intent in the 999 recording or Rana's anguished pleas. Justice Silver said that Rana could not be faulted in her conduct towards the deranged perpetrator she was faced with, and that his defence of enormous stress was nowhere near close to mitigating circumstances, so there would be no reduced sentence. The judge added, "You just could not accept that Rana did not want anything more to do with you." Stephen Griffiths was sentenced to life with a minimum non-parole period of 12 and a half years. Less, of course, the 16 months of time served. Carol, Rana's mum, and the rest of the Faruqi family were devastated. They felt like it was just one more letdown. The police hadn't protected Rana while they had the chance, and now the justice system had handed out what must have felt like a slap on the wrist. A little over 10 years for cold-blooded, premeditated murder. The judge ended up recalling Stephen and upped the minimum to 15 years before parole, which I guess is better than nothing, I suppose. It came to light that Stephen had stalked other women before Rana, but he had never been charged or sentenced. One of the women said he would enter her home while she wasn't there to move objects around, just to let her know that he'd been there. While he was in prison, Stephen wound up in a relationship with a prison warden, who was then fired. Carol campaigned, and a misconduct investigation into the Thames Valley Police led to an admission that they should have acted on the first complaint. Carol set up the charity Protection Against Stalking with another mother of a stalking victim. She and the rest of the family also spoke at the independent parliamentary inquiry into stalking law reform. Stephen Griffiths was released on parole on the 4th of December 2020, but recalled to custody on March 19th, 2021. We're not real sure why. Stephen Griffiths was then found hanged in his cell at 5 a.m. on the 20th of April, 2021. There will be an inquest into his death, which is expected to take place in front of a jury at the end of this year or in early 2023. But that, my friends, is all I have for you today. If the content in this case has raised any concerns for you regarding your own relationship or that of a loved one, please reach out for help. There is a list of resources in the description box below. Please know that you're not alone. There is help out there. I thank you again for joining me this week, or this time. I'm sorry I've been so lax in my uploads. I promise, no, I can't promise anything. Let's face it, I'm useless. I will do my best to get on schedule, but I appreciate you taking the time to listen to Rana's case. And until next time, please take care of yourselves and be kind to one another. Bye. Is my little buddy off-putting to anybody else? Every now and again, I catch him out of the corner of my eye over my shoulder going, what you talking about? I think we should name him. Hey, buddy. Anyway.